Welcome to the Bible Christians to God. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath in the mighty name of Jesus. Welcome again to another edition of the Bible Christians of God. We brought on Facebook Live because the topic today we want everyone to get maximum exposure to it because this is a lesson that's simply hasn't been taught. And today's lesson, again, let me state, welcome again all the brothers and sisters spiritually and physically of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to another edition of the Bible Christians of God. And today's lesson is Abib. Abib, and you know, this time of the year, you have the world thinking that we are in the first month of the year. Well, that's based on the times of the Gentiles. But the Bible tells us that Abib is the beginning of the year, and I felt it was time to teach it because it's simply not taught. And it's a very simple lesson, but it has huge ramifications when it comes to observing the Lord's feast and observing what the Lord say, and when the Lord say, observe the beginning of the year. We're simply not in the beginning of the year. January is not the start of the year. Nothing is moving during this month. But when Abib gets here, everyone is going to know it. And we're going to look at Abib in the light of the set feast, and we're going to look at Abib as pertaining to setting the Lord's feast and in the count. Now, this is the thing I want to make known about Abib. In the first 5 books of the Bible, of all the books of the Bible, all the lunar names of the Bible that come from what people say is the lunar calendar, it is the only name that's found inside of the law. The first 5 books that established the church, the foundation of God's people, the only name that's between Genesis and Deuteronomy concerning a calendar, a lunar month name is Abib. You don't find, I want everybody to write this down, because this is real important, y'all, because it's simply not taught. You don't find Sivan, you don't find Lear, you don't find Tammuz, you don't find Elul, you don't find Ethanim, Chesvan, Casliv, Tevet, Shavat, Adar. You don't find none of these names in the law. You know, let me be real specific. Between Genesis and the last book that Moses wrote, you do not find in it. You only find the word Abib. Now I have this handout. It's on our website. You can go on our website under the set feast, and it's listed as the prophetic Bible calendar handout. So if you want this very handout that I'm holding in my hand here, you can go on our website and print this out. And it compares how you have the lunar calendar versus the prophetic count that the Lord has. And he sets it using Abib. Abib is the only one found in the law. The only lunar month name found in the law. And we're going to go and show you that it is even 4 times in the law. Number 2, it's the only month that Moses knew by name. The only month that the children of Israel, when the Lord brought them out, this is the only month named Abib that God gave to his children when he told them about keeping his feast. This is how we know the feasts are set from Abib. There were no other names mentioned, and we're going to go into this book and talk about this thing. Now, also, it's also important is, nowhere in the law does the Lord say, observe Ethanim, or any of the other lunar calendar months. You don't see the Lord listing that, even though he mentions new moon. So, Abib is critical to understanding the Lord's plan when you keeping the Lord's feast. And quiet is kept, y'all, the whole creation is still within the whole month of Abib. We haven't left Abib as a creation. So I'm going to tap on that a little bit. This is how deep Abib goes. So now I have a chart over here that of day and night And we're going to show you how Abib affects this, which I have beside me. So we're going to kick it off with Deuteronomy 16 chapter. Let's go to Deuteronomy 16 chapter and verse 1. Deuteronomy 16 and 1. The only month the Lord told you in the law, because you got brothers running around talking about, oh, I'll keep the law, I'll keep the law, I'll keep the law. Well, why are you dealing with Ethan? Why are you dealing with a lunar calendar? Why are you talking about this is the biblical lunar calendar? The Lord didn't say that. This is what the Lord said in Deuteronomy 16 chapter. And this is what we're going to ride with. What thus said the Lord in the law. You got brothers so adamant about the law, but they adding all these other little lunar months to their observation, and it's throwing their observation of the Lord's feast straight off. The Lord didn't say observe Ethanim, which is the seventh month name, lunar on the lunar calendar. So let's look at this flat out. Deuteronomy 16 chapter and verse 1. Notice what it says. Observe the month of Abib. Ask any of those other brothers, any other teacher, any other class, show me in the law where the Lord said observe any other month. Show me in the first 5 books where the Lord said observe Ethanim or Sivan or any of these other months. It ain't written in the law. So when the Lord established his church in the wilderness, according to Acts 7:37 through 38, he gave us Abib. He said, observe Abib and keep the Passover until the Lord thy God, for in the month of Abib, notice, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out by night. Now here's what I want to do. See, Abib, when you observe Abib, it is 30 days. It's a 30-day month, y'all. Okay? We got it on our handout. To show you it's 30 days a month. Look at any one of those little lunar calendars, and it'll tell you Abib is 30 days. It's a 30-day month. That's off the top. Number 2, let's go to Exodus 23 and 15. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I go there. If you look in this chapter, I want everybody to examine this chapter right quick. If you look at verse 2 all the way down to verse 8, you don't see anything about any of the moons. It's talking about the Passover, and it's talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, if you go down to verse 9, just and looking in your Bibles, please, because we're going to read this later. I just want everybody to do a visual quick check. It's like a real observation. Pay attention. Look at what God put in this chapter. Notice that verse 9, he talks about 7 weeks. That's talking about the Pentecost. And then when we get down to if you look all the way down, verse 10, verse 11, you look at verse 13. Now, what's so noticeable about verse 13 is, it starts out by thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. It goes past the memorial blowing of the trumpet. It goes past the Day of Atonement. Okay? But I want you to notice these things so that you pay attention, because this lesson is simply not taught. People are not told to pay attention to what's in this chapter. Because paying attention to what's in this chapter has everything with understanding how to observe the Lord's set feasts. And we're going to get to that real quick, what the set feasts are and why that's set from Abib. Because now if you look at verse 16, he said 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God. Notice we don't see nothing about Ethanim, which is what the 7th month, if you're going by a lunar calendar, is. And if you follow the moons, that's what it's talking about. The 7th month is Ethanim. God don't say observe the 7th, the Ethanim, the month Ethanim. He says observe what? Abib. Everybody can read that. But can you read observe Ethanim? No. So my point is going to be further established. So, and let's do this. Let's go to Exodus 23 and 15. Exodus 23 and 15. This lesson is simply not being taught. You have people rehashing over and over lessons, over and going over the same thing year in and year out and year out and year in. And you know, we jump all over the Christians about observing pagan holidays, but you ask the average Bible Christian, or I won't say that, the average feast observer, why are we throwing all these other moons and lunar calendars on top of the Lord's feast when we only have Abib in the law? We put our neck on the Christians, but you find among us that call ourselves keeping a feast something that God didn't put there. So we're being very hypocritical if we don't understand what the law says about what we are to observe and what month the Lord said observe and what he said his feast from. Like I said, the book is right. The Lord had to wake me up on it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's right. Ain't no Ephraim on the savannah or none of that in the law. Those were added in captivity. But those were not there when the Lord set up his church in the wilderness, according to Acts 7:37 through verse 38. So now, let's look at Exodus 23 and 14. Because Abib is mentioned 4 times in the law. Write this down, y'all. Write this down. Exodus 13 and 4. The one we're getting ready to read now, Exodus 23 and 15. Exodus 34 and 18. And the one we read for our first verse, which is Deuteronomy 16 chapter. 4 times the Lord wants us to pay attention to Abib. He didn't mention no other lunar month by name. So now, let's look at this Exodus 23 and verse 14. Watch what the Lord put in the midst of his feast. Watch this, y'all. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Because of the memorial blowing of the trumpets, it's not a feast like eating, or it's not the type of feast that we're going to read right here. So it says, first, thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. This is when we have 2 days, 2 nights, the first night and the 7th night. And we have literally a feast. We bring food, we throw up the grills, all of that, the whole 90 yards. Okay? So 3 times unto me, 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Notice he says in the year, but it starts out with Abib, so we're going to find out. Abib begins the year that the Lord set his feast by. What feast? Notice, thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days as I commanded thee in the time appointed of the month Abib. See, Abib is critical to understanding, and we're going to understand it is the beginning of the year that the Lord used to set his feast by. Notice, for in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. Notice the next thing. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labor, which thou hast sown in the field. And then notice, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year. Now notice how the Lord said the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, because we're going to find out that the Lord's year is divided by 2 separate seasons, a summer and a winter. It's set by Abib, and it goes all the way back around till we have to observe and wait for Abib, and we're going to understand how do we get Abib. The Bible shows us. These things are not taught. Because you got people running around with these lunar calendars not paying attention to the law till when God set up his church. Watch this. He said, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field. 3 times in a year shall thy males appear before me, before the Lord thy God. Now look, let's go right into Leviticus 23 and 4. Because the Leviticus 23rd chapter, this is the chapter that lists all of the Lord's feast days that pertain to salvation. Now you got people that keep what's called Purim, which is a Jewish holiday. It was a national holiday that pertained to us. A perfect example of that, which is going on right now in this nation that we are in, is like the 4th of July or like Labor Day. These are all American-based holidays. Labor Day is American-based. 4th of July is American-based. Has nothing to do with the Russians, or has nothing to do with the Mexicans, has nothing to do with the Polish. Those are American-based. That's how Purim is. That's how the Feast of Dedication, what they call Hanukkah, is. Because that dealt with John Hyrcanus and the Maccabees when they cleansed the temple. It was a Jew thing. That's why it's not listed in this chapter. I understand those things, y'all. Know those things were pertaining only strictly to the Jews. But notice how the Lord started out his feast. Leviticus 23 and verse 1. That's why you don't find Purim in here. You find Purim in the book of Esther, because that was a Jew thing. What we read right here is salvation thing for everybody, flat out the top. That's why we're going to start Leviticus 23 and verse 1. Notice, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation. Even these are my feasts. Now we look at the feasts that belong to God. Purim belonged to us as a Jew, but guess what? They were only there until our nation got took out. After Israel got thrown in the garbage can, it was a wrap. Now you got the so-called Jew, because he wanted to be us, running around grabbing Purim. We be the Jew, because they understand it's a national holiday. So if somebody want to observe Purim because you know you're Israelites, but it ain't got nothing to do with salvation. It only identify who the Jew is, and the Edomite is using it right now to call themselves a Jew. So when I hear brothers hollering Purim or Feast of Dedication, I'm like, that's optional, man. I'm on Israel. That is totally irrelevant. The so-called Jew, they one that's really harping on that thing. The one that's into Judaism. Because I'm saying people that grab that is the same people that be denying the Lord. Okay, the first time. But here we see the feast that belong to God. So now I'm going to skip the Sabbath day because we're not teaching on the Sabbath day. Even though it's important, we're here because of those next verse. But I want to go down to verse 4 and hammer something in the head, y'all. Watch this. Because remember we read the Deuteronomy 16 chapter. He said, observe the month Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. Watch this, y'all. Verse 4. Let's get down to verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Notice, in the 14th day of the first month, at even is the Lord's Passover. What does that mean? That means Abib is the what? The first month. When you go back and look at Deuteronomy 16 and 1, and you come right here, what do we get an understanding about? Because it's about getting an understanding. The Lord said wisdom is the principal thing, but with all you're getting, get an understanding. So now we see Passover, Abib is the first month, and it says at even is the Passover. At even it says on the 14th day, ain't that what we read? In the 14th day of the month, first month, or we could have simply said of Abib, one and the same, is the Lord's Passover. Didn't he tell us to keep that in Deuteronomy 16 and 1? So, next verse. And on the 15th day of the same month, what same month is this we're talking about? Abib. So we had the 14 days to Passover. And everybody can't partake of the Passover. You must be circumcised to partake of the Passover. We can read, that's the ordinance of the Passover. There's no exceptions to that. You must be circumcised to partake of the Passover. Now we move on to the 15th day of Abib, and notice what it says. Same month, it's the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Now this is a feast of unleavened bread. Now with this one, uncircumcised or not, you must eat unleavened bread. That's the difference between the 14th day and the 15th day. You must eat unleavened bread with the Passover. We're going to read that when we get back to Deuteronomy 16 chapter. But I'm going to point out these distinctions because it's very important to understand how the Lord set his feasts out. Notice he says, you must eat unleavened bread 7 days. Notice, in the first day, this is the first day of the feast for 7 days. Okay? You shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. Notice that they said that about the Passover. Because you can go to work on the Passover. You can do your pledges and what have you on the Passover. That's not a feast day per se. Like the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's why we read earlier, He said, 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before me on the feast of what? Unleavened bread. Notice he omitted the Passover because the Passover is a memorial. But you can't work on the unleavened bread, which is the first day of the feast that he's talking about right here. Now let's skip that. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. Notice this is a repeating. This is a feast that has the first day is unleavened bread, and the last day, which is the 7th day, is unleavened. But it's all about unleavened bread. And the one aspect that I teach is that it's repeated because that first day represents when the Lord delivered Israel the first time. And guess what? The Lord got to deliver Israel again. And if you think I'm playing, look around you. Get your dollar bill out. We back in Egypt, y'all. It's not a joke. It also represents the presence of sincerity and truth here for all mankind. It's present for 7 days, y'all. Because when we come to that 8th day, it's going to be a sad thing. But that's another lesson. But look, let's skip down. Now, what I want to do, verses 9 through 14, I'm omitting. It's talking about the wave sheaf offering. The wave sheaf offering is held within the feast of unleavened bread. I don't want to harp on that right now. Just get on the majors. On the majors. So now, pay attention to verse 15. We skip down to verse 15. Notice how the Lord said, ye shall count. No, you shall count. Wait a minute. Didn't we start counting from day 1? From Abib, we got to the 14th day. Then we get to the 15th day. And now he said, ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath day, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the weight offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. So in getting the Lord's feast days, you must count. You don't sit up there and observe what we got to observe, what's the next new moon. No, the Lord said observe 1 month, Abib. And we're going to show you the proof that it is 30 days per month in this Lord's count. We're going to show you that flat out in the law. Okay? 30 days is a month to God. Now watch this. And he says, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Now notice, even unto tomorrow, after the 7th Sabbath, shall you number. See, the Lord deals with numbers, y'all. Why do you think there's a book in the law called Numbers? I mean, you know, I don't mean to show anybody's intelligence or anything like that, but please, pay attention to the book and you'll be amazed at what you learn. Pay attention. You'll be like, wow, it is that simple. That's why Paul said the simplicity of Christ. Don't let nobody corrupt you from the simplicity that is in Christ. It's very simple, y'all. And I'm like, man, we looking for complicated stuff. Now the Lord is very, very, very simple, y'all. So he says, even tomorrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. This is what Pentecost means. And you shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. Now look, let's go to Numbers 28th chapter. I want to go to Numbers 28th chapter. And then we're going to get into how is Abib determined that setting up these feasts that we're talking about. How is it determined, y'all? We have it on our website. I'm just bringing it out in the lesson, flat out. So when we go to Numbers 28th chapter, I want to act like, it's going to look like we never left Leviticus 23rd chapter. So we're going to Numbers 28 and verse 16. Watch this, y'all. Numbers 28 and verse 16. Notice what it says. And the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord. Ain't that what we read out of Leviticus 23rd chapter? We didn't see nothing about no other moons in Leviticus 23rd chapter. However, in this Numbers 28 and verse 11, it talks about the beginning of the months, which you shall offer a burnt offering to the Lord. And that's marked by moons. A lunar observation that was done at the beginning of the month. But they had nothing to do with the Lord's feast. That's why it was omitted in Leviticus 23rd chapter. And I brought you here, starting in verse 16. And it looked like we never left Leviticus 23rd chapter. Show you what I mean further. Look at verse 17. Remember how we saw these are the feasts of the Lord. On the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord. That's in Leviticus 23rd. We just read that right here in Numbers 28:16. Verse 17. And the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. In the first day shall be a holy convocation, and you shall do no manner of servile work therein. So I said we never left Leviticus 23rd chapter. So now let's get down to verse 25. Numbers 28 and 25. Notice. And on the 7th day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall do no servile work. Notice verse 26. Also, in the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new meat offering to the Lord, after your weeks be out. Why is your weeks be out? Because you got to count 50 days from the wave offering, which is always within the feast of unleavened bread. Notice, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. Now watch this, y'all. Let's go to let's try to skip down 25. Let's go to Numbers 29 and 1. Within the law. No other, there's no other lunar names and all that. Ugh. You don't find anything else. Only Abib. Notice what he says in Number 29 and 1. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is a day of blowing the trumpets unto you. Notice he mentions it here. It's also Leviticus 23rd chapter. I could have went there. But the reason I went here is, guess what? He didn't say Ethanim. He didn't call in no, you shall observe the month Ethanim, because the 7th month, if you go by a lunar calendar, check out some of those other websites, they got a lunar calendar on there, and it'll tell you Ethanim is the first day of the 7th month. But the Lord didn't put that in his law. Why? We're going to get to why you got to count 30 days per month for the Lord's set feast. So he said, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is the day of blowing the trumpets. Now let's get down to verse 6. To further establish my point. Because at the beginning of every month, for the observation of lunar observation for every month after Abib, this is what was happening. Notice he says, besides the burnt offering of the month. Notice he didn't call it the first day of the 7th month. Here, the burnt offering of the month. You want to read about the burnt offerings of the month. Look at Numbers 28 and verse 11. That's when he was talking about new moons and burnt offerings at the beginning of the month. But we're going to show you why you must count 30 days per month in the Lord's feast, to get the Lord's feast. Okay, now I'm going to keep reading. And his meat offering and the daily burnt offerings, which are mentioned at the top of this chapter, top of chapter 28 of the book of Numbers. Okay, again, at the top of Numbers 28, talks about the daily burnt offerings. And his meat offerings and their drink offerings, according to their manner, for a sweet Savior, and sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord. Now watch this. And on the 10th day of this 7th month, notice, you shall have on the 10th day of this 7th month a holy convocation, and ye shall afflict your souls. Ye shall do no servile work therein. This is talking about the Day of Atonement. That's on the 10th day from the time that you come to the 7th month. And we're going to get to the count, because it's real important to understand you got to count. Then we read that in Leviticus 23rd chapter. After you count, when you shall count. So you got to count out to the 7th month. How many months are there? We're going to get to that. So I'm going to skip down to verse 12. And on the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. You shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. 7 days. 7 days is the Feast of Tabernacle, y'all. Now, let's skip down. I'm going to skip all the way down, because he walks down these days, and I got a lot to put out. Because he starts talking about the 2nd day, and the 3rd day, and the 4th day, and the 5th day, and the 6th day. So we're going all the way down to verse 35. Skip down to verse 35. Notice what it says on verse 35. On the 8th day, wait a minute, did he say feast for 7 days? But on the 8th day, notice what he says. Ye should have a solemn assembly. Now, solemn is very grave, because it actually represents the day of judgment. God, the presence of God's bread of sincerity and truth is here for 7 days for all men. So everybody that didn't partake of the bread of truth, guess what? You got that 8th day waiting on you, and the Lord gonna ask you, gonna be looking at you, why didn't you partake of my bread of truth? I had here since Abel, all the way down to this very day. We all have access to the sincerity and truth of God, all of us. That's what the unleavened bread represents, sincerity and truth. That's why he said you must eat unleavened bread for 7 days, because all of us must get this sincerity and truth if you don't want to be in judgment, or rather, if you don't want to be judged in the 8th day. But that's in the lesson when we do the 8th day. But that's why it's called a solemn assembly, because on this day, ain't no rejoicing on this day, y'all. You could be standing there looking at that lake of fire, and you're going to be looking at the books, and the Lord going to be like, what bread was you eating for 7 days? Or what did you partake of my unleavened bread? Did you get some sincerity and truth in you? That's what you're being judged by, the sincerity and truth. That's why it's a solemn assembly. That's what solemn means, very grave, very serious, very somber. You shall do no servile work therein. Notice he said, but you shall offer a burnt offering, a sacrifice made by fire with sweet savor unto the Lord. Notice, 1 bullock and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without blemish. Now, this is being burned, represent people being burnt. That's why there was a fire on that day. That wasn't a fire you was rejoicing, because you rather have your sins burning than you burning. So that's why this is on that day. Okay, y'all? But look, because you got people talking about ain't no meat, no flesh in that day. Child, please. Ain't that flesh right there? Ain't that, it says you shall offer a bullock. Ain't that flesh? Hello? Anyway, but watch this, y'all. We're going to skip down to verse 39. Verse 39. Notice what the Lord said. These things shall you do unto the Lord in your set feast. Why did the Lord call it set? What do you set it from? Think about this. When you set your alarm clock, do you set it while you sleep or before you go to bed? Nobody sets the alarm clock while they're sleeping. Before you go to bed, you be like, oh man, I gotta get up at 6:30. Man, I set my clock, I gotta get up at 7. It's already set before you go to bed. Well, notice what the Lord said before your set. He said, these things shall you do unto the Lord in your set feast, besides your vows and your free will offerings and your burnt offerings and your meat offerings and for your drink offerings and for your peace offerings. The set feast. Set from what? What month did God tell us to observe, y'all? Abib. It's set from Abib. How I know that? Let's go to 2 Chronicles 31 and 3. 2 Chronicles 31 and 3. Set feast. The Lord said it from Abib. We don't have to go around observing no moons like, man, this is second month. No. We do our 30-day count, and we're going to show you how Israel knew that it was a 30-day per month count, y'all. And we're going to see that. But I want to point out the set feast. And then we're going to get into how Abib is determined. How we get Abib, y'all. So look here. It says in 2 Chronicles 31 and 3, he appointed also the king's portion of his substance for the burnt offerings, to wit, which means to know, for the morning and evening burnt offerings. That would have been at the top of Numbers 28th chapter. Okay? And the burnt offerings for the Sabbaths, that's also there. And notice, and for the new moons, which was in Numbers 28 and 11, those are your new moons. But watch this, because this is separate. This is a category. The Lord going daily, then he went to the weekly, then he went to the monthly with the new moons, the lunar. Then notice, he says, because this is a category now. Remember, all these are separate. Notice he said, and for the set feast, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Wait a minute. When did we read set feast, y'all? In Numbers, didn't we? And he started with the Passover. Well, all his feasts down, and he said, these things shall you do in your set feast. Now, let the book define what the set feasts are. Let's go back up to 2 Chronicles 8:15. We let the book talk, And even Paul says something right quick. We're going to read. 2 Chronicles 8 and 5. Second Chronicles 8 and I'm sorry, 8. We're gonna start 8 and 12. 2 Chronicles 8 and 13. 12, sorry. 2 Chronicles 8 and 12. Then Solomon offered burnt offerings to the Lord on the altar of the Lord, which he had built before the porch. Even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses. Notice, on the Sabbaths, on the new moons, that's lunar, and notice, and on the solemn feast, 3 times in a year. Also, that's what the set feasts are. They are the solemn feasts that the Lord said. And remember, 3 times in a year. And when he said, you shall appear before me 3 times a year, what month was in the midst of that, y'all? Then we see what? Abib. Abib, because it's set from Abib. Notice, even the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of Weeks and in the Feast of Tabernacles. Didn't we read that, y'all? That's what we read. The Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days. And we saw Abib in the midst of the solemn feast. Everything is set from Abib. That's why we're going to get to why you need to determine and understand how to determine these things that the feast bring about. So now look, let's go and see how Abib is determined, y'all. Let's look at this. Now you got brothers out there that go strictly by, well, there's the barley got to grow. You got some brothers out there saying, we're strictly by the new moons. And you got some people out there that say it's by the seasons. Well, we're going to show you what the Bible shows you got to have all three, and all three work in conjunction. By season, by the new moon, and by the equinox. Let's go quickly first to Colossians 2 and Colossians 2:16. I'll show you what Paul said. Colossians 2:16. The Lord said, to the law and to the testimony, they speak not according to this, there is no light in them. And this is the problem with people dealing with the lunar calendar. They can't bring it across the law. They can't bring it into the testimony, brother. They cannot. Matter of fact, there is no lunar calendar in the law. Only Abib. And then you get all these little names that came up in captivity. So look what Colossians 2 and verse 16 says. Now you got the Christian running here to kill the feast when actually it's establishing the feast. Clearly it establishes the feast, but they so big on Christmas and Easter eggs and bunny rabbits. I'm like, okay, y'all. Look, Paul let us know. He said, let no man therefore judge you in meat, because this chapter deals with the philosophers and the philosophies of the world. That's what Paul was warning us against in Colossians 2 and 8. That's how they justify doing Christmas. Now look, he said, let no man therefore judge you in meat, talking about the philosophers, or in drink, or in respect of a holy day. See, the service of God observe the holy day, not holidays, or of the new moon. Notice Paul said new moon. He didn't say new moons, because you only look at one new moon. One. Abib. That's all the Lord commanded. He commanded, he said, ye to observe ye the month Abib. So we look for that new moon for Abib, and we're going to look at how that's determined according to the Bible. So he says, of the new moon or the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come. Shadow of things to come, y'all. That's why the Passover, well, we got a lesson called how it's relevant to yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Because all the Lord's feasts are still, we have a present day meaning right now. Present day meaning. You understand, you're supposed to be walking in the blood of Jesus right now. With the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. That you may be a witness of Jesus. And you're going to blow that trumpet, which is his book. And you have a ministry of reconciling people to God. because he is present in you. And guess what? That 8th day, you execute the judgment. That's written every day. Every day. Every day. Take it out. So this is the importance of observing the feast, period. So now what I want to do is go and show you by season first how the Bible shows us when Abib is and why Abib is called the first month. You gotta turn it over, y'all. Turn the computer. So we're gonna go now to Psalm 74 and 17. Show you what the Lord has made. He made summer and winter. And summer is begun by what we understand as spring. See, the Lord has a transition between two periods of the year. Summer and winter. This is all that there are. Okay? Summer and winter. That's really what it is. How I know that? Psalm 74 and 17. We're going to read that, y'all. Psalm 74 and 17. Psalm 74 and 17. Notice, it says, thou hast set all the borders of the earth. There are borders, y'all, of the earth. What kind of borders? Watch this, y'all. Thou hast made summer and winter. These are only two seasons, y'all, that we have really on the earth. There's the beginning of the summer, just like I have here in this chart. There's the beginning of the night, you have midnight, and you have the end of night. Well, the Lord has a beginning of the summer, you have summer in its full bloom, then you have the end of summer. Like you have the beginning of winter, you have winter in full bloom, and you have the end of winter. Transitions, y'all, transitions. That's why, let's go to Genesis 8 and 22 now. So we're looking at, first of all, how is Abib determined? One aspect of it is by the seasons. You know by the seasons. That's why in the middle of dead of winter, nothing is moving. Abib is the beginning, y'all, of the year. There's nothing moving in the middle of January, y'all. As cold as it is up there, look, God sends a signal across this whole planet. And we're going to understand that this day. So Genesis, we're going to Genesis 8 and 22. First aspect of determining Abib, we set the Lord's feast, because that's what he said, I observe, is we're dealing with the seasons. And look how it says here, Genesis 8 and 22. Genesis 8 and 22. Determining Abib. Three aspects. There's three components. Three of them. Make sure you write it down. By the season, by the new moon, and by the equinox. All three of those work in conjunction to give us our Abib, according to the Bible. Here we go. Genesis 8, 22. While the earth remaineth, notice, seed time and harvest. Then it says, and cold and heat. Now, I want to point this out. Cold and heat, the Lord has used temperatures. We're going to understand this is what triggers the seasons. How God manipulates cold and heat to start the seasons. We're going to read that. It's the information I get. Notice, and summer and winter, those are the two seasons, y'all. And we know day and night shall not cease. So this is how the Lord set the borders of the earth. Right here in Genesis. Right in the book of Genesis. Let's go to Jeremiah 36 and 22. Because remember, we read the Feast of Tabernacles is in the 7th month. And I want to go to Jeremiah 36 and 22. Because once you go into the 7th month, you are in the end of the year. You are in winter. The Lord divided his year 6 months for the summer time and the transition is spring into summer. And you go summer, then you go into what's called the fall, which is the transition into winter. See, the Lord got transitions, y'all. Okay? We understand the beginning of summer as spring, and we understand the beginning of fall as, beginning of winter as the fall. The leaves falling off the tree. We're going to read a little something so we can understand that the Bible manipulates what's going on with the trees around us, the seasons. So 36th chapter of Jeremiah. Jeremiah 36 and 22. Watch it. Remember, we know the Feast of Tabernacles is in the 7th month. Watch this. Now the king sat in the winter house. The winter house. Notice, in the 9th month. Of course it's in the 9th month. Because the winter starts in the end of the year. That's why he called the Feast of Ingathering was in the end of the year. It's in the last 6 months of the year. So you have the Lord's feast divided between feasts that are in the beginning of the year, and you have his feast that marks the end of the year. Because when you understand what the end really is, guess what? The Lord using that trumpet to signify that is the end. When he blow that last trumpet, it's a wrap. The kingdom of this world becomes the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. And what day is the memorial blowing of the trumpet on? It's on the first day of the what? 7th month, which was sent from Abib. Now the Lord come down. Everybody's going to be reconciled to God then. The Gentiles will come up and say, our fathers had an inherited life. They're going to confess to the Lord because it's going to be wrecked by then. And guess what? The tabernacles represent God dwelling here literally. Literally, God will be here. That's why it's called the end of the year. The end of whose year really? The year of man. It's going to be over in the beginning of the 7th month. It's a wrap. That's why we in the end now, as far as the season is concerned, end of the year. But notice he said in the 9th month, and there was a fire on the hearth burning before him, because winter time is when you need that fire. Y'all, we got some cold places right about now, y'all. Anyway, but moving right along. So let's go with what Jesus said. Let's look at Jesus said something here. Luke 21 and 29. And then I got an article I want to read. How the Lord manipulates temperature to trigger when fall comes. Because he's setting up when the beginning of the year comes. Oh, it's very, very simple. And he mentions it right here. Luke 21 and 29. Jesus even said it right here, y'all. Luke 21 and 29. Luke 21 and 29. Watch this. And he spake to them in parable. Behold, the fig tree, and all the trees, all of them. Notice how winter is. All the leaves fall off, y'all. And when autumn hits. And you get that equinox in the month of September, October's time frame. Right around in there. Then you get that switching over, y'all. Okay? Notice he says, when they now shoot forth, notice, because they're down, they're not being apparent or visible. Notice, verse 30. And when they now shoot forth, ye see, and we all see these things happening. Give it another 2 months. Watch right around March. You're going to start seeing. You literally see the beginning of the year coming in. He said, ye see and know. You see and you know. Ain't nothing ain't nothing growing on no trees right now, y'all. Y'all, please, you go out there, man. You go out there with your winter coat. And you go look at the trees, they all bare. So we know the Lord let you see the beginning of the year. He let you see it. He said, and know of your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. This is how we know by the season. So not only is it the barley and all of that, but you see all the trees. Once they start seeing the trees in the land, everything start sprouting forth and triggering, and hey, things that start blooming. Hey, here come Abib, y'all. Now, why is it like this? Paul even mentioned in 1 Corinthians 11 and 4. He said, doth not nature itself teach you? Nature teaches us when the beginning of the year actually gets here. That's 1 Corinthians 4 and 14. Paul told us, doth not nature teach you? So let's read this article. I pulled this off of the University of Toronto Research and Innovation. It says, So what makes leaves sprout in the spring? What makes them sprout, y'all? What makes them fall off? Nature teaches us something, y'all. Watch this. What is it about spring that makes the new growth of leaves on trees occur year in and year out? And that's what Jesus just said, y'all. See, the Bible is very practical. It's living. This is not a joke, y'all. It's for real. But you got people that want to play with this, but that's another lesson. But it's actually for real, y'all. That's why this stuff can be found and documented, and I'm reading it. Like I said, this comes from the University of Toronto Research and Innovation on their website called researchutoronto.com. That's what makes leaves sprout in the spring. Notice, even though we're in spring now, the whole program that that's when he wrote it, he says two things that causes this event to occur. The whole program that you're observing, notice, that's why he said observe the month Abib. You observe when Abib was coming in. By the season, you can tell when Abib was getting in. Okay? Your observing was set up in the autumn. So it actually started triggering when the end of the year began. Yes, sir. Notice, as the days get shorter in the autumn and the temperature declines, remember the Lord uses cold and heat. He uses temperature to manipulate what the trees do. When he turned that cold up, this is what happens. It says, as the days get shorter, notice the days are getting shorter, which is why the equinox comes into play. Okay? Notice, and we're going to get to that equinox in a minute. It says, the trees set itself up to go dormant. This is in the fall. And then the same program sets itself up to burst buds in the spring. Then Jesus got to say, when you look at the fig tree and all the trees, and they now, when they know now, when they now shoot forth, you see it when the buds is coming up on the trees, y'all. That's how you know, we headed for the beginning of the year. See? So it said the same program sets up to burst buds in the spring. And of the two components I mentioned, day length and temperature. This is why the equinox is important. And the Lord, we're going to get to that. I'm going to hone in on that shortly. But the Lord sent a signal across the whole planet. I lived in Alaska from 1985 to 1990. I understand exactly what the Lord does across this whole planet. Because Alaska gets all crazy darkness during the wintertime. But guess what? It comes a time when day and night is equal. On both ends of the spectrum, y'all. So I know about the top of the globe, which is the same thing that happens at the bottom of the globe. The Lord is very, very simple, and he signals the whole planet. Because he's the creator of the heaven and the earth. All of it. So watch this. Day length and temperature. The one in the autumn that's the most important is the day length. It functions as a signal for the plant to begin to shut down. So the Lord uses it in the end of the year to shut it down, call them everybody to shut down. That's what you see out there right now. Okay? They shut down. And to put it another way, it's night length that's important too. As the nights get longer, the plant perceives the lengthening night of the shortening day and embarks on a program to shut down. With that being said, even plants in tropical zones or in the lower latitudes will still shut down in the winter months, even though the day length may not decrease as dramatically as what we experience, for example, in Canada or Alaska. And they do that by perceiving other cues. Watch this. Here's the other cue, y'all. Decreasing temperatures. Then the Lord said he used cold and heat. The Lord is very practical, y'all. So he used temperature across the planet to cause these things, to cause the seasons to shift. Okay? So watch this. Decreasing temperature, water availability is also important. Take a look at forests that exist close to the equator. They use signals that are derived from water availability. So in late August and early September in the northern hemisphere, when precipitation rates drop, that can function as a cue and have the trees shut down and enter into a dormant state. That's what's going on outside right now in the little yard we see now, or around your house. Okay? When the trees make that dormant bud that hardens the bud we see through the winter months, that's to protect the growing tissues underneath from foul weather. So it's not that they're dead, they're protecting themselves. Because they're waiting for the beginning of the year. That's what Paul said nature teaches us, y'all. Flat out. The book is right. And we see it manifest right here. And notice, it says, they are set up to grow again in the spring to make sure that they interpret the cues during the winter so that they don't grow again in the spring at the wrong time. God uses seasons. So now let's go and show you how by the equinox, we already read about 10 because the length of days and nights shift across the globe. Like I said, I stayed in Alaska for 5 years. I know about all night and all day. Trust me. From 85 to 1990, y'all, I was in Alaska for 5 years. So with that being said, let's go to Deuteronomy. Let me break this off. Let me go to Esther right quick. Show you how the Lord got this thing. Esther 2 and 12. Esther 2 and 12. The Lord got even rich 6 months. And he showed you with people, he showed you in nature. Esther 2 and verse 12. Watch this, y'all. Esther 2 and 12. Now, when every maiden's turn was to go into the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months. 12 months, y'all. There's a time when the 13th month come up, but we'll discuss that a little later. According to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit, or meaning to know, 6 months with oil of myrrh. Okay? And then notice it says, and 6 months with sweet odors and with other things for the purifying of the women. Because women are affected by that monthly cycle, y'all. So the Lord got it said it's a season when they went into that thing, it's time. And then that 6 months coming out, then it's time for that. But look, I want to go to move on to the equinox because it's very, very important that we understand this. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32 and 8. Because equinox means what it says, equal. It's equal day and equal night. That's what I have here on this chart. You don't need to see this, but if you see this little black patch right here, make sure everybody can see it, even on Facebook Live. The black patch represents when you have 12 hours of night, and then the other part is 12 hours of day. So we're going to get to this, but there's 12 for a reason. There's 12 for a reason. And then there's a 13, but that don't come around. There's a reason why 13 isn't every year. It represents judgment, y'all. It straight up represents judgment. But here's the thing. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 32 and 8. Deuteronomy 32 and 8. Abib is so important. The seasons show you when Abib is coming. Now we're going to see how we got to pay attention to that equinox right here, 32 and verse 8. I'm sorry, 7. Start at 7. It said, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he would show thee, thy elders, and they would tell thee. When the Most High divided the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Now, notice they didn't say the sons of the children of Israel, because Jacob had 13 kids. People keep forgetting about Dinah. Look up Dinah. She's the child of Jacob, a.k.a. Israel. It's almost like saying, my daughter's not my child. Really? Okay. And I do have sons. But all my children collectively are counted, y'all. But there's a reason why it's 12 sons, y'all. Why the Lord using 12 critically. And I want to go to establish that because he said 6. Remember we read early 6 months. You got the year divided 6 months for at the manner of woman. 6 months. 6 and 6 give you what? 12. Well, look, let's go to St. John 11 and 9. St. John 11 and 9. Jesus makes us a very significant statement here during the time that the equinox is here. Equinox only occurs twice in a year, y'all. St. John 11 and verse 9. That's why I have on this. It's 12 hours of daylight. And day it takes, you have to have a night and a daytime period. Let me say that again. A nighttime period and a daytime period. Jesus is only addressing the daytime period. But of course, you already had 12 hours a night that preceded this. So right here, look what Jesus said at St. John 11 and verse 9. Now, what makes it so interesting is that he said this before the Passover came, which is always the case. The equinox precedes the Passover. So watch what Jesus says right here. And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in a day? So he's talking about the daytime, y'all. So if there's 12 hours in a day, the equilibrium to that is 12 hours in the what? Night. You can look it up. When the days are equal out, you get 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours across the entire planet. That's why what we read earlier, the length of day and the length of night matters to causing the temperature to affect how all the planets react across the whole planet. The Lord said to set them across the whole planet, one shot. That's why when I was in Alaska and they started getting, we started seeing daylight. Man, okay, boom. So if I was keeping the feast up in Alaska, I didn't know, hey, here comes Abib. All I do is count days out, boom. Go count all 30 days out to the 7th month. Irregardless of where I live on the planet. Because in the summertime, they don't see no moons. Right. The moon is out. It's that straight, the sun's spinning in the sky, y'all. And I know this. People that live in Alaska know the last time, especially in June, the last time you saw a moon or any the stars, child, please. That's what, like the end of May, maybe? Somewhere around in there. But it's a long time. I've been to Sitka, Alaska, Delta Junction, Fairbanks, some of those extreme northern places. I know about that. Living here all day like y'all, man, we had fun. You talking about picnic at any time. All night long. Well, actually, all day long. Okay? Ain't no night up there in the summer. So how they gonna go night and day, night and day? No, they just know it's set from Abib. So anybody on the planet, once you observe the seasons and the equinox come, then guess what? You know Abib was on the table. Now we're gonna show you how the new moon connects into that. Cause that's the third and final element to all the things, the three things that must work in conjunction. So Jesus said, are there not 12 hours in a day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. Now watch this. Skip down to verse 55 in the same chapter. All the way down to verse 55. And notice what it says. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand. Because the equinox comes before the Passover. The equinox comes before the Passover, always. And notice, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. So Israel knew, hey man, we got purified because, hey, once that equinox show up, purification time, man, you got to make sure you straight. Before you come, you just can't know anybody just eat of the Passover. Notice it didn't say, he didn't mention the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because everybody can eat unleavened bread, whether you uncircumcised or circumcised. You must eat unleavened bread. That's flat out. Strange or not. But you must be circumcised in order to eat the Passover. Now watch this. Here's a very interesting thing. Let's go to Ezekiel 18 and 29. Look what the Lord told Israel. Ezekiel 18 and 29. Because the whole planet gets 12. 18 and 29. Look what the Lord said here. He said, yes, said the house of Israel, the way of the Lord it's not equal. And Israel act like that. Notice, O house of Israel, are not my ways equal? That's why we know when Abib is coming up, that's no, the Lord created the beginning of the year. We know we are in the ways of the Lord. You got people that talking about what earlier this month, Happy New Year, talking about the beginning of the year. They ain't in the ways of the Lord, y'all. Because did not move on January 1. That's why we living in the times of the Gentiles. They set up January 1. But what the Lord said, Abib is the beginning, y'all. Because things are moving. And his ways are equal. Are not your ways equal? That's why the Lord showed you with the equinox how it is the beginning. It sets the beginning of the year. It sets up Abib so that we can start our count from Abib all the way out. Now here's the key to linking the new moon. See, let's go. Now we're going to go right to the new moon, how the new moon plays. Now, let's go to Genesis 1. Genesis first chapter. So now we done showed you the season. We done showed you the equinox. How does the new moon play out in this whole thing? Well, first of all, the Lord created the new moon, created the moon within a 7-day time period. From the day that the Lord said in Genesis, we're going to go to Genesis 1. Genesis 1. We're going to start there. For the time that the Lord began his creation, the moon and the sun didn't come up until the 4th day. That's how you got people talking about, oh, he said the months by the moon, or the Sabbath by the moon. Guess what? Let's start reading day 1. There wasn't no moon here, y'all. Okay? So Genesis 1 and 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now this is the first day of the creation week. Let me show you, let me go there. The first day of the creation week. The week is not dictated by no moon. The cycle of the week began in creation. And we use the cycle of 7 days. 7 days, y'all, to the equinox. When does the moon show up? When? Because if it's greater than 7 days, you have to count the next new moon. But if it shows up within 7 days of the equinox, why do we say within 7 days? Let's get down to verse 14. Matter of fact, hold this spot. I'm going to go here. Exodus 20, and then we're going to come out. Let's go to Exodus 20 and 8. And hold Genesis 1, and let's go to Exodus 20 and 8. Sabbath is very, very important. But I want to point out why the new moon is significant. And why you have to wait for that season. When you start seeing that season bloom, and when that equinox get close, where is the moon that's coming up at that time? Because they have moons that mark months on the lunar observation. But that last moon, that last new moon to show up, where is it coming out after you've seen 12 moons? 12 new moons. And remember, in the beginning, there was darkness. Let me state that. We go by a dark new moon. Abib 1 is a dark new moon day. Not no slither or no crescent. That comes from Allah. That's what Ishmael wanted to use. He wanted to use a slither. Well, in the beginning, it was darkness. There was no moon there. So the moon is dark, flat out. That's the beginning. That's what we read in the beginning of this chapter, didn't we? So that's what we go by Abib 1. Abib is a dark moon. So now look at Exodus 20 and 8. Look what the Lord said here. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall thou do thy labor, and shall thou labor and do all thy work, like the Lord did with his. He was laboring for 6 days. And notice, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that's within thy gate. Here we go. Notice how he goes right back to the creation. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So now we see everything that was made within actually 6 days. Okay? So now let's go back and look in the 6 days, y'all. So we're going to look within 6 days, and we're going all the way down. We're going past the third day, and we're going to look at when the Lord created the moon, and the sun and the moon. Back to Genesis 1, and we're going to take it at verse 14. Genesis 1 and 14. It'll be easy for everybody to get there real quick. Let's turn to the first page of the book, y'all. Notice, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and a lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning was the fourth day. So within the 6 days is when the Lord made the moon. We just harping on the moon now because we're trying to talk about how the new moon sets. It's included with the seasons and the equinox. So when that new moon shows up within the equinoxes, within 6 days, we use that. Now, normally the equinox falls around March 20th, 21st. It varies. Some days, if we get real technical and try to make scientists out of y'all, but just to give you a good understanding. So if the new moon shows up on March 17th or March 15th, 18th, that's the moon that we use to start Abib. Now, if the new moon shows up on March 10th or like March 3rd, we can't use that moon. That's how we get a 13th month, because you can't use that moon because it's outside of the creation week. After March 20th, you use that moon. But if it's earlier than 6 days, if it's greater than 6 days, like March 3rd, March 5th, March 10th, that new moon that shows up there, that dark moon shows up, nope, you got to count 30 days from that. Boom, that's Abib 1. That's why you notice sometimes the Passover is off into April, deep into April. Like this coming year for this year, 2018, the Passover falls on sundown March 31st. That's just for this year. Because we count from the new moon that showed up within the 7-day week of the creation. So now we clearly see, and let's show you how this moon sets the season. Let's go to Psalms 104:19. That Abib new moon, it sets the season. Not every moon, y'all. Watch it, Psalms 104. But that Abib new moon, that sets the season, y'all. Psalms 104. Because you have a moon that sets up Abib, and you got moons that, remember how we saw earlier, you got 6 months for the woman after the man and women, because moons regulate how a woman's menstrual cycle goes throughout all the years. So that's what it means by seasons, y'all. But remember, the Lord said, observe Abib. So let's look at Psalms 104:19. He appointed the moon for seasons. So which moon are we supposed to pay attention to, y'all? Which one did the Lord say observe? He said observe Abib. You can't read nowhere in this book. I don't care how good you think your teacher is. Please have him show me in this book. Send it to bccnm.jacob where it says observe the month Ethanim. Please. I'll be waiting. That's at gmail.com. But he says he appointed the moon for season, and the sun north is going down. So now we understand clearly why the new moon is important. So that new moon shows up too soon. Now you gotta look at the seasons. Okay, bang, all right, is everything blooming? Okay, we got our equinox. Where's that new moon at? Uh-oh, it's greater than creation week. Outside of the number of days of the creation week, then we gotta go to the next new moon. Okay? So these are the things that are critical, y'all. So let's go back to Deuteronomy 16 and 6. And then we're going to get into the counting of 30 days, y'all. We're going to nail this 30-day thing in the head today. Deuteronomy 16 chapter and verse 6. Deuteronomy 16 and we're going to start at verse 6. Because at verse 13, he's talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But I want to go here for a particular reason. Notice, Deuteronomy 16 and 6. But at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name in, there shalt thou sacrifice the Passover at even. So when the sun go down on the 14th day of month, Abib is the Passover. Notice, at the going down of the sun, at the season. Wait a minute, so we have, what season is this? It told you at the top of this chapter. Abib, that Abib new moon, that's the season. That is the season. You can't see that where it say nothing for no Ephraim. So he said, at the season that came forth out of Egypt. So that Abib new moon, or that Abib moon, yeah, was set, that new moon set the season that we came out of, y'all, which is the 14th day of the month Abib. So now let's go to get into this 30-day count. Let's go now. Let's go Leviticus 27 and 5. Show you how you got to count a month to God. And it's a prophetic count. The Lord has showed from the beginning. He declared the end from the beginning. From the beginning. So let's go Leviticus 27 and 5. Now here's the key. Israel had to know how long is a month. How I know that? Watch this. Leviticus 27 and 5. Watch this, y'all. (27 and 5). It said, and if it be from 5 years old, even to 20 years old, then thy estimation shall be of the male 20 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. Now watch this. And if it be from a month old, see, they was messing with money, so they had to know how long is a month. So he said, and if it be from a month old, even until 5 years old, then thy estimation shall be of the male 5 shekels of silver, and for the female thy estimation shall be 3 shekels of silver. So now they had to know, how long is a month, y'all? When is a month old? Well, let's go look at a major clue. No, let's go look at another place. Numbers 3 and 14. Numbers 3 and 14. And then we're going to get into what a month is. Because you got lunar months, okay, that come up shorter than 30 days. Well, we're going to show you what a full month is. And the Lord uses full month in his capitals. A full month. We're going to show you what a full month is. Numbers 3, and I said Numbers 3 and 14. Watch this, y'all. Watch this. They had to know how long a month is. 3 and verse 14. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, number the children of Israel after the house of their fathers, by their families, every male from a month old. So they had to know, how long is a month, man? How long is a month? And upward shalt thou number them. Skip down to, let me see, I'll go down to I'm sorry, we keep going. And Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord, as he had was commanded. And these were the sons of Levi by their names, Gershon and Kohath and Moriah. And these are the names of the sons of Gershon by their families, Lani and Shemiah, and the sons of Kohath by their families, and Aram and Ishhar and Hebron and Uzziel. Now I'm going to skip down to verse 39. I'm sorry, 30, 34, 30, 33, 33, 33. And of Miriam was the family of Mahalites, and the family of the Mushites. These are the families of Moriah, sorry. And those that were numbered of them, according to the number, all the males from a month old and upward was 6,200. So they knew, they had to know how long a month is, y'all. How long a month old is? Well, let's look at what constitutes a month old. Let's go to Deuteronomy 21 and 13. Because this is an observation that concerning a captive. If they were, a person was captured, and in particular, this is what we're going to read about a female, and she was captured. I'm sorry, I want to go to, I got them. Sorry, Deuteronomy 21 and 13. 21 and 13. Deuteronomy 21 and 13. Watch this. This is concerning the captive, y'all. Concerning a captive. Now watch this, y'all. This is a, she done lost, she come from holding other people, caught in war. She done lost her family, her mother and her father. She's no longer connected. Look what she has to do. And she shall put off the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thy house, and bewail. That means mourn. Mourn her father and her mother, because she's no longer connected. Notice, a full month. What is a full month, y'all? Now, if you're going to look at the lunar calendar, it's getting you partial months. It gives you some are 30 days, some are 29, 30. It fluctuates. It gives you full months, and it gives you less than a full month. That's why I say it's full month. So what is a full month? Let's go and see how long they mourn for Aaron. Let's go to Numbers 20 and 29. Numbers 20th chapter. Numbers 20th, rather. 20th chapter. And verse 29. A full month. Mourning, bewailing. One thing it's saying, go look it up on the thesauruses. Bewail means to mourn. And notice, in 29. And this is when Aaron died, y'all. Watch this, y'all. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they mourned for Aaron 30 days. 30 days is a full month. And we're going to go to the law and the testimony to establish it. But they mourn for a full month. We're saying it's 30 days, even all the house of Israel. Now let's go when they mourn over Moses. Let's go to Deuteronomy 34 and 8. And we're going to let the book bag up the numbers, y'all. We're going to let the book bag up the numbers. A full month is 30 days. And now we're going to the 34th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. The 34th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. And then we're going to use the principles found in Isaiah 8 and 20 and Matthew's 13th chapter, verse 52, to the law and the testimony, to be instructed and to confirm this. So, 34th chapter of Deuteronomy and verse 8. This is when Moses died. And the children of Israel wept for Moses, mourning, bewailed. Notice, they mourned for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. 30 days, a full month. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. 1 month is 30 days. Confirm that? Let's do something very, very, very simple. Let's go to Revelation's 11th chapter. Revelation's 11th chapter. And verse 1. 30 days. Let's see if the book bag it up in the testimony. Because Isaiah 8:20 said, if they speak not to the law and the testimony, according to this word, it's because there's no light in them. So let's see if we get this from the testimony, y'all. Revelations 11 and verse 1. Got to come across both together, law and testimony. That's why he said, bind up the testimony and seal the law amongst my disciples. So we see 30 days in the law. Now we finishing 30 days right here, y'all. See if 30 come up. Revelation 11 chapter and verse 1. And it was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise, and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Now if we take 42 months and multiply that times 30, how many days we get? 1,200 and what? 3 score. Let's see if that's in the very next verse. And I will give power unto my witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 score days. That is 30 days times 42 months. All day long. 30 days per month. Clothed in sackcloth. Let's go into Revelations. Stay in Revelation. Let's go to Revelations 12 and 6. We go to Revelations 12 chapter and verse 6. 42 times the 30 or 4 months give us 1,260 days. That's how the Lord counts. Notice, and the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared to God. Notice he said in the wilderness where the Lord gave him Abib. Think about it. He said in Abib. I observed the month Abib. Abib was 30 days. He didn't give no other month. So he said, they fled to the wilderness where she had a place prepared to God, and they shall feed her there 1,203 score days again. 30 times 42 is what? 1,203 score, or 1,260 days. That's 30 all day long. Let's go to the 13th chapter. 30 come up. Let's see right here. Actually, hold on. Actually, I want to skip down to the same Revelations 12 and verse 14. Because the Lord have a way of breaking it down. So you ain't gotta be dependent on Brother Jake. Well, what you think, brother? Child, please. Anyway, let's let this book talk. Because you got brothers running around adding stuff into, matter of fact, no, I'm gonna go there next, but let's skip down the same chapter and watch this. 14th verse. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she may fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time. Notice, and times. See, that time, that first time represent what? 1 year. How did the Lord break down his time? Summer and winter. All our times, I said, we go through summer and winter. Gone. Then he said, and times, which is 2 years. And notice, and a half a time. How long is half a time? How long is a half a year? We read 6 months. That's a half a year, y'all. Or you can simply say 180 days. Because that's 6 times 30 gives us 180 days. And that's written in the Bible. We can go read that. Matter of fact, it said we're going to do it, it said in front of the face of the serpent. Now what I want to do now is go into Jesus. Let's go to Jesus, y'all. Let's go to Matthew 24th chapter. I'm sorry, I was going to go to another spot. I'm sorry. Go to Revelations 13 chapter. Remember, we read at the top of Revelations 11 chapter, we saw 42 months. Now we're going to Revelations 13 chapter and verse 5. Revelations 13 and verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, talking about the Antichrist. And power was given unto him, talking about the beast, one and the same, y'all. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. How many days per month is that? The top of Revelations 11 chapter, verses 1 through 2. Define that for us. It's 30 days. We saw that a 4 month is 30 days. All day long. All day long. So Now let's go to Matthew's 24th chapter, y'all. Matthew's 24. Using the principles that the Lord said, to the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, there's no light in them. We got 30 days in the law, we took that to the testimony, and it came up what? What the book said. 30 times 42 give us 1,260 days, all day long. That's what we read. Do the math. That's why the Lord got books in his book, the book of Numbers. You got to deal with numbers, y'all. So Matthew 24 and 15. We almost done, y'all. We almost there. Matthew 24 and 15. Actually, I'm going to start at 3 because this is very critical to understand. Because the Lord used 42 months to his coming, which is 30 days per month, which gave us 1,260 days, all day long. So right here, at his coming, Matthew 24 and 3. As he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. That's why I had to show you 30 days per month. 30 days per month. We saw that. A full month is 30 days. And when you took the 30 days out of the law and you multiply times 42 months, you get what the book said, 1,260 days. So now let's look at one of the signs, because I can't go into all of this. But we're going to go into Matthew 24, and we're going to skip down to verse 15. Matthew 24 and verse 15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them be which in Judea flee into the mountains. So now let's go and read that, because that's very, very, very important that we understand this. So let's go and read to Daniel's 12th chapter and verse 1. Make sure we're talking about this same time. Daniel's 12 and 1. Then we're going to skip down. Daniel's 12 and verse 1. Because Jesus told us it's going to be a time such as never was, nor ever shall be. So we're in Daniel's 12 and verse 1. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince who standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So this is in front of us, y'all. This is another great tribulation period that's going to precede Jesus' coming, which the abomination that make it desolate is going to be bringing. So now let's get down to verse 7. And we're going to see the same thing we read out of Revelations 12 and 14. We're going to see it come up in this chapter. Daniel's 12 and 7. And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he had held up his right hand and his left hand into heaven, and swear by him that lives forever, that it shall be for a time. Did we read that in Revelations? Times? And a half a time. That's the dividing of times, y'all. When he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. That was Revelations 12 and 14. 1,260 days. Now watch this, y'all. Skip down to verse 11. And let's read exactly what Jesus was pointing. Because he said, when you shall see the abomination that maketh desolate, stand in the holy place, whoso read it, let him understand. Now we're going to read and understand. Verse 11. And from that time, from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate, there shall be 1,290 days. Write that down, y'all. Write down 1,290. Do yourself a favor and do that. Then right under that, boy, we just got to figure it out. 1,260 days. And when you subtract, what do you come up with? 30 days. That's book. 30 days a month. And that what we read in Deuteronomy? They mourn 30 days. That kind of mourn a full month is 30 days. That number is solid. That's what you get. So we count 30 days from Abib for every month. This is why you come up with 180 days. You come to the 7th month. That's when the Lord, that's the time that the Lord recognized as the first day of the 7th month. He didn't say he recognized Ethanim. He didn't acknowledge it. He didn't say I observed Ethanim, which is 3 days before that. 30 days is how we count to get to the 7th month. Is it in the beginning of the book, y'all? Let's do ourselves a favor. Let's go to Genesis 7 and 11, y'all. It's all over this book. Matter of fact, yeah, we're going to, because Jesus told you in Matthew 24 and verse 37 that as it was in his coming, so shall it be in the days, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in his coming. What was it that we discovered in the days of Jesus' coming? It was 30 days per month. Because when you multiply 30 days times 42 months, you get 1,260 days. So now let's go to Genesis 7 and 11. And we'll be done right after this, y'all. Genesis 7 and 11. Genesis 7 and verse 11. Notice what it says. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month. So wait, we already had 30 days go by, and now we on the 17th day. So 30 plus 17, that gives you 47 days. 47. Because we on the 17th day of the month, the 2nd month. The same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. Now let's go to, skip down to verse 24. Oh, actually, I have to keep reading. My bad. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So now the Lord has started his water coming. So now let's skip down to verse 24. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So now if we take 30 into 150, that's 5 months, ain't it? So 5 months plus 2 months give you what? 7 months, don't it? Let's see if the book back that up. Let's go right into Genesis, the 8th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 3. Watch this, y'all. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated, and the ark rested in the 7th month. Interesting. Notice, on the 17th day of the month, notice, upon the Mount of Ararat. So 30 days per month is the count that the Lord used from the law. We see the morning for 30 days, that's a full month. That's the count that you use all the way out to the 7th month to get your first day of the 7th month. So when all this came by, let's go to Isaiah 8 and 20. This is our last place. I'll say Isaiah, 1st chapter. We're going to Isaiah 1. I want to end it on this. This is why the Lord said what he said. And if you ain't counting 30 days per month, or if you add new moons, you coming up short. Earlier. People running around talking about the lunar calendar, the savannah. Lord said, observe Abib. Abib is primed to understand. So we're going to Isaiah 1 and 12. Isaiah 1 and 12. When you come to appear before me, who have required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and the Sabbaths, because you got people saying their Sabbaths according to these new moons. The Lord did say, he said, observe what? Abib. Remember that. And do your count from Abib. We saw the set feasts. They are set from Abib. He didn't have no other moon in the midst of his feast. You only had Abib, y'all. You count 30 days from Abib, you good. Abib 1, which is the dark moon. But he's saying here, your new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is iniquity. Even solemn meetings. So if your solemn meetings ain't based on the set feasts, and you ain't talking set feasts, set from Abib, that's what the Lord said. I didn't put that in there. And then go to verse 14. Your new moons. Then Paul said, he said, have no man judge in respect of a new moon, because Paul only observed Abib. That's what we said our 30-day count from Abib per month. He said, your new moons and your appointed feasts, because they don't appoint each of them. The Lord only has observe one moon. So when you observe according to some lunar calendar, what they want to call some biblical lunar calendar, the new moon that shows up on each of them one, who do you think the Lord talking to right here? When he said, your new moons, because then that's more than one moon. He said, your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hated. They are trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. Because Israel want to do that, saying they observe the feast of the Lord. Well, how come each of them ain't in the law? And only Abib. So I hope you guys understand about Abib, the commanded month that we have to observe, and the set feast of the Lord, and we have established the 30-day per month. That's what you get when you take 30 days and you multiply it by 42 months. You get 1,260 days. In my name, Jesus, hope you keep the Lord's feast this coming year according to that. Okay? So have again you observe each of them